Good morning. I thank everyone for being here. I'm joined today by individuals of the Massachusetts State Police and the Springfield Police Department. To my right is Deputy Chief Steve Kent from the Springfield Police Department. To my left are Major Mike Farley, Detective Captain Eric Benson, and Detective Lieutenant Sean Marr to the far left, my far left. I would also like to acknowledge, as a part of this specific investigation, Sergeant Aaron Kane, Trooper Michael Ryan, Springfield Police Detective and Task Force Member Thomas Cakeley, and Assistant District Attorney Carrie Beatty for all their work in this investigation, as well as Lieutenant Liam Jones and Detective Lieutenant Sean Marr for their leadership and incredible commitment to this office and its mission of public safety for all. My office and its partners are in the process of concluding an operation aimed at addressing the public safety issues in the Union, High, and School Street area in the city of Springfield. As we have in the past, we have identified a significant public safety threat and moved to extinguish it. This investigation represents the unparalleled capabilities that we have developed to maintain lengthy and high-level investigations that use the best technology and leverage the partnerships across law enforcement that we have forged over many years. Creating safer communities is at the heart of all that we do as an office. With this investigation, we have unquestionably met this objective. I am deeply honored to lead and work with these courageous women and men. The talent and commitment by the individuals who collectively make up the investigative side of the Hampden District Attorney's Office are second to none. I wish to wholeheartedly thank them for their tremendous service here today. In the summer of 2023, the High, School, and Union Street area of the city of Springfield erupted in a wave of violence. This area became the most troubled and problematic area of the city. By the numbers, from July 1, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, the Springfield Police Department received 118 ShotSpotter activations in this area, 89 911 calls for shots fired, 45 reports filed for aggravated assault, and 23 911 calls for a person in possession of a firearm. A major part of this landscape has been two rival drug trafficking organizations engaged in a violent and deadly armed turf war that sought control of the lucrative heroin, fentanyl, and cocaine market in this area. The violence in this area has resulted in numerous shootings, stabbings, and assaults, which include 5 deaths since April 30th, 2023. At my direction, my office's Hampden County Narcotics Task Force and the SAFE Unit, Strategic Action and Focused Enforcement, along with the Springfield Police Department, began a high-level investigation into these drug trafficking organizations with the goal of identifying and dismantling these violent organizations. Detectives were able to identify those individuals who were in direct control of these organizations, as well as the individuals who were supplying them with illegal narcotics. Astoundingly, I'm proud to report that this investigation so far has resulted in the arrest of 20 individuals, with more indictments of co-conspirators to come, along with the seizure of 10 kilograms of cocaine, a ½ kilogram of heroin fentanyl, 58 grams of methamphetamine, 20 firearms, some of which are before me here today, and over $400,000 in cash. In addition to the material improvement in public safety that results from the seizures of the aforementioned contraband, in late August, a mere 3 weeks into the investigation, detectives developed intelligence that required immediate action. It was learned that one of the targets of this investigation, Jeffrey Washington, had the intent to shoot and kill an individual he saw near his residence. To carry out this murder, detectives were aware that Mr. Washington had traveled to High Street to retrieve a firearm. Investigators were directed to this area of High Street by other investigators monitoring the city's camera system and using other surveillance tools. The target was in fact observed traveling to High Street, retrieving a firearm, and departing that area. Investigators decided to conduct a traffic stop. The target was indeed found to be in possession of a firearm and was then arrested. He was later indicted along with 3 co-conspirators for conspiracy to commit murder. It is clear this investigation and the dedicated detectives involved stopped a violent act from being committed, and in so doing, likely saved a life. I also wish to note one suspect who's under arrest now is Daniel Mendoza, who was on lifetime parole for an August 1996 gang-related homicide in Chicopee. He pled guilty to second-degree murder and other charges and was granted parole on August 12, 2013, when he returned to this community. Another individual who was arrested as a part of this effort is Fabian Rosario. Mr. Rosario was previously arrested in July of 2022 during a separate narcotics investigation in the same area. He was arrested after he struck an undercover trooper of the Massachusetts State Police in the face with a liquor bottle. My office indicted him for this offense and others. In fact, on September 29, 2023, he was sentenced after an unagreed plea in the Superior Court. Despite the Commonwealth's recommendation to the court that he serve a 2 to 3 year state prison sentence, he was sentenced to probation by the court. I want to note that Mr. Rosario, who was arrested as a part of this investigation, in fact was on that very probation to which he was sentenced on September 23rd, 2023, and he is now out again. The Commonwealth asked for a very significant cash bail. Bail was set by the court in Springfield District Court of $7,500, which he almost immediately posted, and no action was taken by the probation department to detain him on the probation violation that he was given in September. So Mr. Rosario, after that sequence of events of criminal behavior, is back out on our streets, likely in the city of Springfield. This investigation was extraordinarily successful, no question, due exclusively to the commitment and hard work of the many investigators involved. Nearly all of the suspects who were identified as operative and significant offenders in this area have been arrested and have been charged with serious criminal offenses such as drug trafficking, firearms, and conspiracy to commit murder and violate drug laws. The targeted area is one of the most economically disadvantaged areas of this city. But this does not mean that crime should run rampant, that the vast majority of its residents, who are law-abiding and decent people, should not have peace and quiet. What it does mean, in fact, is that those who are charged with public safety, including those in the court system, must respond. We must stand up for those who can't do so for themselves. We must do what we can to ensure that all people can live without fear, that all people have an equal opportunity to raise their kids safely and live peacefully. A press release will go out shortly identifying suspects arrested along with their charges. I thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Happen to know when the last arrest occurred here?
Part of this whole investigation? We'll provide that information for you, Stephanie. It's ongoing. As I said, we're really not concluded completely, but we're at a position where we can report the majority of, I think, the results of this investigation.
So there'll still be a heavy law enforcement presence down out in that area?
There will be, in credit to the Springfield Police Department, who also responded in early summer with added resources and a focus on this area. The Massachusetts State Police certainly responded not only through my office, but with additional marked cruisers and other units. And the federal authorities did as well. It was really a very collaborated, concerted effort that law enforcement came together and talked about, understanding that this area was deeply troubled and that there was violence and drug distribution that needed to be curtailed and stopped. So that effort continues. I certainly, Deputy Chief Kent would talk about that. It's obviously welcome to do so. The Springfield Police Department continues to monitor that area very closely along with its partners, no question.
You mentioned Mr. Rosario. He was one of those arrested as part of this investigation.
Correct.
His status now is that he's out in the streets?
That's correct, on bail. In fact, he was seen the day after his arrest in that same area.
Are you frustrated by the fact that he's out on bail at this point?
Indeed, I am. I'm frustrated not only for, myself and the work that we try to do and the efforts that we take, the hard work of assistant district attorneys in court who make these arguments. I'm not only frustrated for the investigators who put forward so much toil, so much hard work to make these cases lawfully, but I'm frustrated for the residents of that area, who, as I said, by and large are decent people, who don't want to hear gunshots at night, who don't want their kids walking by a drug dealer, who don't want their apartment building infested with people who are dealing drugs and carrying guns. So what do those people feel when their tax dollars go to these investigators, support the court system, and a guy like this, who is not a first-time offender, to be sure, who is not a low-level offender, to be sure, is back on the street the same day or the next day after he's arrested again for poisoning that neighborhood, for wreaking havoc on those streets? Yeah, I'm frustrated. I think a lot of people are too.
These weapons that would, for those radio, you can describe what they are, if assortment.
I'm not the most knowledgeable by any stretch, but to me they look like weapons of death and destruction. There's various concealable handguns and 6 rifles that are designed to kill things. And these are the tools of the trade. These are the things in the hands of people who are not licensed to carry them, who very often are using them to intimidate and to hurt people.
Are these some of these ghost guns? I see some that are
Sergeant?
the kind of plastic.
Yes,
They look like plastic.
yes they are. Some are ghost guns.
You said you guys have increased the presence of local law enforcement. Can you talk a little bit about what's being done throughout the day to ensure that people are safe as kids are going to school, kids coming home from school, especially now that it turns a lot darker because of daylight savings time?
I'm in the position to conduct investigations like this and to conduct prosecutions. Springfield Police Department is the primary organization charged with public safety. As I've said, they've done a great job responding, and I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Steve Kent.
Thank you, Dan. So, after the summer that we had there, we upped our patrols in the area. We have our C3 units and our Metro units collaborating to do foot patrols of the apartment buildings there. We have tenant lists, so we know where the empty apartments are, and we know that they should not be occupied. And that's where a significant amount of the street level dealing takes place. And it's not people that live in the buildings, it's people that come from other areas and just use those buildings to deal, which obviously isn't fair to the people that do live there. So we did that. We continue to do that. The patrols of the buildings, we do what we call designated patrol routes, where a cruiser will just spend 20 minutes to half an hour right there in the neighborhood to be visible so that people know that they're there. On top of that, we have our crime analysis resources. We have significant resources dedicated over there on the technology side, which I won't get into the specifics, but it's pretty sophisticated. And I would just like to build on a couple of the DA's points. Early last summer, we had 2 or 3 individuals involved in a shootout. There was 120 shell casings recovered from that one event, but they didn't hit each other. So think about 120 shell casings, think about 120 projectiles flying around a densely inhabited neighborhood. And think of the danger to the people that are, at that time of night, they're probably in their apartments, but if they're looking out their windows, and we did recover several projectiles from apartments and from inside apartments and cars and whatnot. So just think of that, the danger there. And the other thing I'd like to comment on that the DA said was how we're all frustrated with this revolving door that the this court system has turned into. And from my perspective, from a street level perspective, we need the citizens to give us information. They're our eyes and our ears. We've got X amount of neighborhoods in the city to police. We can't be everywhere. We can't see everything. So we need these citizens to call us and tell us what's going on, and then give us the information we need to put the bad guys where they belong. So if I'm a citizen and I got a family and I'm living in one of these troubled neighborhoods, and I call the police and they come and they get the guy that I called about, and then 8 hours later or the next day, that same guy is standing back out in that same corner doing that same thing. Am I going to have any faith in the police department? Am I going to have any trust in the police department? Am I going to make that call again? Or am I going to say, I'm going to mind my own business because it's not doing any good anyway, and they obviously can't protect me from this individual. So that's where my frustration comes in at the local level.
Susan, Deputy Chief, if I may ask, you mentioned that so the dealers don't generally live in there, they're doing business in it. What about customers? Are they also from outside, or are they part of the neighborhood?
I would say it's probably a mix of both, maybe half and half. If you know where to find your dealer, I mean, that's where if you're a customer, you're going to go where the dealers are, right? So they come from outside the neighborhood. I'm sure there's probably a decent amount or significant amount that live in that area. And when I say that area, call it a half-mile radius or whatnot. But yeah, it's a mix.
Have you seen, is it too soon to tell whether the change in ownership of those troubled apartments, I think the west side landlords came in, have you seen a difference yet, or is it too soon to tell?
I think it's a little too soon to tell. They have to, and I don't pretend to know anything about this, but they have to deal with the housing laws and eviction laws and everything else to get the people that do live in there that are the problems and get them out and figure out who's supposed to be there and who's not supposed to be there. But we anticipate that we hope that it will improve over there.
There's some initial good signs, so there's been greater level of cooperation with police than had existed initially, which was a part of, I think, letting this problem sort of grow, that the building management and ownership was not involved effectively, was absentee, right? And there was some aspects of the criminal operation there that our investigation revealed that had to do with folks who were a part of the building operation. So that made things more difficult, and as the deputies, not the management, but other aspects of the building operation. So what the deputy said that is important is that vacant apartments were being used by individuals, and it was very hard for law enforcement to pin down because there's no record of who those individuals are, or where they were operating. And now, through these efforts, we've been able to identify that and identify which apartments are supposed to be vacant. Any other questions?
I know that a lot of problems have arisen in a lot of the apartments owned by Springfield Gardens. Has management been able to assist in that process or provide any kind of information or assistance to the local law enforcement?
I do believe, not only for this neighborhood, but for other neighborhoods, we were able to acquire some tenant lists. How accurate they were at the time, I don't know. Springfield Gardens, the company had their problems as far as their management skills go. So we did receive a little bit of cooperation, but it might not have been as helpful as it could have been.
Thank you.